Very fascinating. You good to go?
Yeah, for sure.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm pleased to be joined by Walt Pistor, CEO of Empowered Home. How are you today, Walt?
Doing great. Thank you. It's a sunny day here in San Jose, California. Spring is upon us.
Yeah, same here in the Philly area. It's been a long, dreary winter, so it's nice to emerge. But let's just kind of dive into the interview here. But maybe just start by telling us what Empowered Home does.
Yeah, so empowered home is really the evolution of healthcare. So many people are familiar with the term remote patient monitoring. And so we've evolved that concept, which has worked, but it's had some limitations, and we're moving that into a term that we've called remote patient. Well, a lot of people know it, but remote patient care. And there are some distinct differences between that, so that I can get into that
Sure.
detail. But you're
Yeah.
really looking at the overall person's. You're looking at the person's overall health and their care, and syncing up care providers, managing and monitoring continuous data,
So are
helping
these
physicians
typically
do a better
people who
job.
have, gone who have medical issues or have been through surgeries, or is there a particular?
Yeah. So our target audience is generally people who are aging at home. So that's
Mhm.
the baby boomers, kind of the silver tsunami, as you'd put it. And they are, if you look at the overall arching problem right now in 2023, 71.5% of the amount that the US spent on healthcare, which was $4.7 trillion dollars, was attributed to 31.5% of the population. And so basically two-thirds of the healthcare spend represent one, get incurred by one-third of the
Yeah.
US patient population. And those people had two or more chronic diseases. So it's really all about managing the life. It's about managing the state of health for those individuals and being proactive versus this reactive model that we're in today.
Right. Cool. Cool. And was there something that inspired you to create this business?
Yeah, so actually, that's a great question. So my aging parents were my inspiration. They've been great parents. They're both in their mid 80s now, and they live in a part of rural Washington, beautiful retirement home on the river. That's great when you're young, but that's a lot more difficult when you're aging and need access to care.
Yeah. 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 No, I think we're probably, they call our generation the sandwich generation now
Yeah.
because, again, with anything with COVID, many people have whatever, like kids, they're not teenagers, but who are living at home and they're taking care of them. And you've got elderly parents. My mom is 90 and similar thing. She's up in Canada and it takes a village. It's very challenging and she's healthy, but you're never more than a fall away from, something really turning on you. So,
Yeah, older people don't. They're really good about not telling you how they're really doing.
yeah, right, right.
They don't want to burden others, at least my parents. And so, but
Exactly.
now I can actually see, oh, did my mom get a good night's rest? How's her heart rate variability doing? So I have this. I can just look at my phone and quickly determine what her state, how she's sleeping, what's her stress level, is she exercising, etc.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, that's the greatest generation, right? The ones that went through World War II and sacrificed, and like my mom is the exact same way. She will not show her cards if she has a problem. So tell us. I think that's a good sort of way to set some context. Just tell us how your solution works then.
Yeah, so we actually incorporate devices much like remote patient monitoring, but with the key difference that we rely on wearables versus the traditional remote patient monitoring devices, like put your finger in the pulse ox thing.
Yeah.
We're talking about it like I'm wearing a
Yep.
Garmin on this hand and a Whoop on the other. If
Yep.
I was a diabetic, I might have a little button on the back of my
Yep.
arm. And then, so mostly wearables, but then it can also be combined with in-home devices such as a smart scale. So these scales now are an incredible piece of technology. Just by standing on it for 1 minute, you can capture, muscle versus fat, bone density, level of hydration, even cardiovascular score, heart rate, all just by standing on the scale for a minute.
Wow.
So when you think about the ability, we have lots of great devices out there, but most of them are a single device,
Yeah.
sometimes multi-purpose, but one app, and they're all competing. So our approach is really to leverage this technology revolution in IoT and being able to take an agnostic approach to devices. So that gives us the ability to bundle the right devices for the right conditions that we're monitoring on that patient, and pull all that data into one place and make sense of it, orchestrate it, much like a conductor would be orchestrating a symphony of different
Right.
musical pieces, to be able to draw some level of music or a better picture for that physician or clinician on the other side who's really trying to understand what's going on with my patient, and doing it in a proactive way versus a reactive way. So those are some of the distinct differences, and we leverage technology that's been made recently available to us to accomplish that, specifically. Not only the IoT component piece of it, but also this wonderful thing that we have called large language models. And that's a commodity-driven item, so we've been very careful we're also technology agnostic, meaning that we're not paired to any one piece of technology. It's very modular, so that way we can quickly pivot as technology, the next best thing comes along here. So the key is really in the architecture. That's where I think a lot of these RPM companies fall short, is they get mired down into stuck to one, and then technology eclipses the technology they're on. They're left hanging on the vine. So
Interesting. So you have a way of taking all the various connected devices into some sort of centralized hub. Is that what it is? Well,
yeah, think about a data orchestration platform, and then we also combine that with the latest technology and data standards. There's this term that gets thrown around called FHIR, which stands for Fast Health Interoperability Resources. And CMS came up with this to enhance data sharing and data interoperability, because in healthcare, that is the premise of good healthcare. It's being able to connect caregivers and care providers. So we are with this hub, you mentioned hub, smart, intelligent hub, we can connect to various systems of record. So we can connect to the electronic health record inside the EMR.
Right.
Whether it's Epic or point-click care, if it's nursing, we can gather information, compare it to whatever vitals that were compared against an index, and now use AI to generate correlations, insights, next steps to help the nurse quickly and efficiently diagnose their patient when they are remote, and do it before they end up in the ER.
Right. So is that part of how you quantify your value proposition?
Yeah, our value proposition is manyfold. But if I were to say what we do differently, it would be this correlating continuous vitals with data from the patient's health record in real time. And then from that, compare that to an index to generate clinical risk alerts that help the clinician remotely engage with the patient before there is the need to go into the ER. We're trying to avoid that whole piece of the equation. And by doing so, we are also we notify them before there's an issue, and then give them the information to drill down as far as understanding what were the causal factors of this health instability. So it's really all about getting down to the root cause of the problem, and oftentimes it's not health related. It can sometimes be things that are like maybe the person just their car's not working and they can't get to the CVS to get their medication, or maybe their dog died and they're very depressed and they're checked out. Unless you have information to actually ask the right questions, it's unlikely that they're going to understand the root cause and be able to quickly solve it.
Well, I think what else is interesting about what you said is, sort of the remote aspects of it. Like you mentioned that your parents live in, whatever, like a rural area of Washington
Rural
State.
Washington, yeah.
My mom lives in Northern Ontario in Canada. I mean, like there's a hospital there, but it's, I don't want to say anything bad about it, but it's not what we have here in the Philadelphia area. And I guess you provide access, right, through to care that they otherwise wouldn't get.
Yes, yeah. Remote access to quality care.
Right.
And quality, what is quality care? You have to define that.
Yep.
It's not only the caregiver, but it's also the information that the caregiver has about you to assess your situation and be able to ask you the right questions to appropriately triage what might be happening and to resolve that. Most of the time, it's just, one lever to pull.
Right.
Let's change your prescription.
Right. Right. Can you share your business model, Walt? I'm just kind of fascinated. This is a bit of a novel concept, given all the people who I talk to. This is kind of like a first where, you've got that one patient with different ways of monitoring them. But just, don't you have to go into like excruciating detail, but at a high level, what do they do? Is it a subscription service? How does the patient sort of get access to?
Yeah, so Empowered Home is focused primarily on what we call value-based care programs. And so this is the direction of the industry right now. So this is so there are two ways of doing it. You can do fee for service, which is what's been known forever, where you have a condition, a code, you go in, the doctor diagnoses you, prescribes something, and gets paid based on whatever that code is. A value-based care program is a cooperative agreement between the health insurers and the providers, and the goal is to improve the outcome of the patient. So that's based on quality metrics. The obstacle to that in the past has been physicians even though they might get paid better with the value-based care program and be given all of these great monitoring tools, they're generally reluctant to sign up for that because they don't have eyes and ears on what the patient's doing in their spare time. And there's this thing called lifestyle, which is a very powerful and influential tool. That's thing. And a lot of physicians are just like, well, if I can't see what's going on with my patient and I'm unable to direct them, and therefore I'm unable to shape the outcome of that patient. So our goal really is to remove that barrier and to make this easy for physicians to adopt.
Yep.
And make their life easier, save time in their day, help them service a larger patient population, and pave the way for them to want to join value-based care programs, which ultimately benefits everybody. The payer, because they have reduced costs of care, fewer hospital visits, fewer emergency visits. Of course, when people stay healthy, that's when they win. And then, of course, the patient, they get to live where they want. They have a higher level of satisfaction and happiness. And the family member who sees their mom and dad doing better.
Sure. Is there a regulatory aspect to this, Walt? Is it regulated? Just curious what type of questions you get when you're positioning this.
Healthcare is a highly regulated industry, as we know. And so, I think we all know the term HIPAA. But there are other regulations that we need to be concerned about. And we have a small team, but a very experienced team that's very proficient in healthcare regulations, data standards, and know how to be compliant with private health information. Yep. And so we've even architected our solution to not persist patient data. That's a biggie.
Gotcha. So it's not really stored then?
Yeah, we with that very special interoperability hub, we can actually access data when we need it from the system of record so that we don't have to persist that. But we can actually get data, get correlations, and then actually ship those back to the patient record. And so that enriches the electronic health record without the patient worrying about their health data being in a place that could potentially be exposed. But we still follow HIPAA standards and other things like iTrust.
Cool. So tell me a little bit about your go-to-market model.
Yeah, so our go-to-market model is Empowered Home is still relatively young, and we're building this out. But our go-to-market model is actually in two stages right now. And the first stage will be pursuing. It's a high bar, but it's a bar that will achieve, not only kind of disruption to the existing industry, but sustainability, right? And so the our target markets are going to be managed Medicaid, shared service plans. So you have Medicaid from the state, and then of course value-based care programs with Medicare. Medicare is the largest payer, and then of course we have in between. We have assisted and independent living facilities. So these are people, home can be anywhere. It can be at your residential home, or it can be at a group community type setting, like an assisted living facility, or usually people start out in an independent living facility,
Yep.
like 55 and over for
Yep.
the social aspect of things, and then move into more assisted. But we can, and then of course the other piece of that is maternal health, so pre and postnatal monitoring, so
Gotcha.
that we by doing this monitoring, we're able to um, prevent a lot of expensive complications
Mm,
in during pregnancy.
sure, sure. And have you gotten outside funding for your business?
We're actually so we've had some funding at Angel, plus the founders have contributed in bootstrapping, and
Yep.
we're
Yep.
in the process of raising our capital, and perfecting our general release product, and then also constructing a proposal for the state of Hawaii to help them with their value-based care program. So multiple things as usual for
Right.
us.
Right. Right. And from a again, just in terms of, are you going to like VC, and what have you, what's sort of the, I guess, the temperature out there? What's been your sense?
Yeah, well, so the market it's has changed a little bit. I think most investors right now we're being very careful to uh, es establish our product and our market position in the market that we ultimately want to be in,
Yeah.
versus getting tied up into a bunch of smaller customers, being absorbed into servicing their needs and never quite getting to where we need to be,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
therefore we're taking the longer path on this thing, but ultimately I think the payoff will be infinitely greater, because as if you can help a state be successful with a
Yeah.
program and then really knit together all those circles of care, that is infinitely more valuable than just being a point solution within one assisted living facility. Because the reality is Hawaii is probably has one of the best programs.
Hmm.
If you look at a 52 state graph heat map, Hawaii is actually has one of the best managed Medicaid systems. However, they spend an exorbitant amount of money, and around $550 per day per patient.
Oh, wow. Wow.
So
Wow.
what I'm talking about is, like, you have to look at the pathway, what they're living at home. They're generally they're not being monitored. Their diet, nutrition, sleep, and all that isn't right. Chronic diseases get exacerbated. Their health gets unstable. They go to a
Hmm.
hospital. That's
Yeah.
$3,200 a day. They
Yeah.
come through the ER, so that's about 15 grand. Then the
Wow.
hospital stays $3,200 a day. Then if they're not ready, they move to a skilled nursing facility for 30 days. That's 650 a day. Then if they're still not ready, they move to an intermediate care facility. That's 550 a day. They still can't get stable. They move to a long-term care facility. That's 550 a day. So you can that 550 a day works out to be about $200,000 per patient per year. So you can imagine the governor is highly incentivized to say, "Hey, let's maintain our great status, potentially improve it, but let's cut
Hmm.
back on how much we're paying because this is unsustainable."
Yep.
And so
Yep.
therefore, they're highly interested in a new and innovative approach that we're now taking, to be able to monitor these patients effectively from home, which also includes being able to knit together all of those remote care service
Yeah.
providers.
Cool. Cool. Just tell me a
Yeah.
little bit about the user experience. I mean, do they wear whoops, or what do they, how do you,
Yeah, so we're still where the user experience is actually I would say quite good, right?
Yeah.
So it's
Hmm.
a wearable is super easy, right?
Yeah.
So, we have a Aura
Yeah.
has a wearable ring.
Yeah.
You get into a few complications with sizing of that, but we found that the generally like a wrist type of an instrument does the best job.
Yeah.
The accuracy of these wearables has gotten uncannily good.
Oh,
And
wow.
I think the public acceptance of them has also increased, and awareness has increased to a level that you're not going to get much resistance from patients to do that.
Yeah.
And, what else do they need to do? Step on a scale. I think the most inconvenient thing for them is to have to put a blood pressure cuff on. But even as I speak with you right now, there are companies out there like Samsung that are working on a watch that has a bladder in the band
Right.
and can actually take your blood pressure right off your wrist.
Yeah. My in-laws have the wrist blood pressure coupling, so it's quite a bit easier
Yeah.
than trying to wrap one around their
Yeah, right. You just got to kind of have to keep it easy because, if you don't make it easy for the patient, they're likely to adhere for 30 to 60 days and then get lazy. And then now all of a sudden you're not getting your data. If you have chronic diseases, which a lot of people have, it's a lifestyle change,
yeah.
right? And in order for a lifestyle change to work, you have to make it easy. You have to make it interesting for them and you have to make it easy for them. So those are two things we focus on.
Cool, cool. Hey, so this has been a great interview, Walt. I really appreciate everything that you shared. Just kind of in wrapping up, what are the maybe two or three pearls of wisdom that you would leave other healthcare AI CEOs with, just based on some of the lessons that you've learned in your journey?
Yeah, I think the first one that I'm, healthcare CIOs, CEOs. I think the first thing is technology is rapidly changing, and in order to survive in this environment, my recommendation is to be modular in your architecture, be flexible, and be relatable,
Right,
right? So it needs to be a lot of time needs to be spent on the user experience and defining the personas of who's involved.
right,
The user experience for a nurse might be different from a physician, might be different from a pharmacist, and
right,
on the other side is like, okay, you have a 70-year-old patient and an 85-year-old
right,
patient.
right,
How are they going to be able to interpret the technology?
right.
And what about the remote care person that's helping with activities of daily living? Or the physical therapist, right? Everybody has a role. They all need to see some data about the patient to knit them together, but the
Yeah,
user experience is different. And therefore, the way the things are architected needs to be also modular, flexible, adaptable. That's the most important piece, right?
yeah,
So
for sure.
so I kind of covered the technology architecture as well as the user experience piece, and then since we are in an industry that's highly regulated, I think a good deal of time must be spent on ensuring that there's not going to be a HIPAA breach,
Yeah,
PHIs exposed, that sort of thing.
gotcha, gotcha. Cool. Well, this has been a great interview, and congratulations on your progress. I think whatever, I can certainly relate to it, having elderly parents, and I wish you
Take
all the best
care.
of success.
All right. Thank you too, Dari.
Thank you.